because jiu-jitsu takes time. Every time someone's walking to the door, I see that person as how can I make that person's life easier throughout the 10 years period that that person probably gonna have in jiu-jitsu, right? Because I don't see them as like, oh, you're just a beginner, you walk in. I want like, look, how can I help you get to a black belt? Even though they don't even want that. In their head, they don't want that. But I think in that way.
What is up, ladies and gents? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Raph Esparza, coming to you with another great installment of the Grappling Hour. We have an excellent guest with us today. We'll get to him in just a second here. Listen, this dude's just chilling over here. He's profiling, he's styling. Good-looking dude. Now, you can wait to see him before we get back to him. A couple quick reminders. First and foremost, if you like this show, and I hope that you do, check us out at patreon.com/grappling hour. But Raph, what do I get if I go to patreon.com/grappling hour? I'll tell you right now. For just $5 a month, you can see our interviews 30 days before anybody else. What does that mean? That means you guys get the first interviews access before anybody else. And then if you're poor, then you got to wait like a few days. And it's not that bad. It's literally for the cost of a cup of coffee. You can support your boy, Raph Esparza, and the many great people who are good at jiu-jitsu. So what I'm saying is, if you want the information first, support your boy here. And just for a few extra dollars, you can get extra bonus content not available anywhere else, including tape studies with the athletes, extra bonus content, so we'll do extra episodes with them, and a segment called Roast Raph, where people roast my competition footage, which oddly is the most popular segment. Cannot tell you why. So check us out, patreon.com/grappling hour. You can also get some merch. You can get some Grappling Hour hoodies or some t-shirts. Head on over to rapesparza.com/merch. All of the money that is raised from there goes directly back into this show. So it's not spent on me going to Vegas. It's not spent on my coffee needs. I make my own coffee go. And lots of other stuff. It actually is for the equipment. All this fancy stuff you see here, it pays for that. Additionally, last couple reminders, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. Rate and review on those places. But if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. It is very helpful for us if you do those things. And if you don't know what you want to comment on, by the end of this video, I will give you something, a topic where you can comment on. And finally, if you really do enjoy our stuff and you want to continue the conversations that we have here on the show, head on over to Discord and find us at Grappling Hour on there. All right, let's talk about our guest. Well, our guest is kind of a badass. He has been making the scene well his own backyard in the wonderful confines of New York City. And we're happy to say that he's very close to opening up his own academy. We have a very nice mutual friend who put us in touch. And he said, hey, would you be interested in interviewing Jeferson here? And I said, yeah, dude, like, the dude's a killer. He's an excellent competitor. I want to hear more about his teaching and, of course, all the excursions he's been able to make in the very, very popular and tough to succeed area of New York. But, ladies and gentlemen, welcome for the very first time on this show, one Jeferson Guaresi. Jefferson, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, Raf, thank you so much. I appreciate for the opportunity to be here. And also, thank you for all the compliments. That's so nice of you.
Listen, dude, I mean, you know what's always funny is one of the things about being a host is you try to pay attention to everybody, right? And there are people who sometimes I prefer to meet in person and say like, hi, my name is Raph. Good to meet you. Because sometimes when you do the over the internet thing, it gets kind of weird. Like, I don't want to slide into people's DMs for the first time we meet. I want to meet them. And Matt did us a solid by putting us in touch, and I appreciate him for doing that. Now, I guess my question here is I don't get to beat up Matt on a regular basis. I don't see him. We're known virtually. Do
Mhm.
you get to beat him up on a regular basis?
Yeah, I used to beat him up a lot when he used to train in Unity, especially. Now he's more in the Unity Jersey City, a little bit farther. And but he also, so the way I got to know Matt, it was he was a student in Unity. He started doing my night classes, and we start becoming very close friends to each other. And then eventually we become training partners also.
He is a very fun and nice person. We bond through a mutual respect of pro wrestling. So I've seen this guy doing pro wrestling moves or letting people try to hit him with it. And I was like, he's anytime people do that, I go, they're good people because they have a good sense of humor. But how did you guys connect? Like, what brought you guys together? Obviously, you were training, but at a certain point, you probably start being like, all right, this dude's okay, or he's got a good sense of humor or whatever. So, like, what bonded you guys?
He's very friendly, right? He has good sense of humor, and he also at the beginning I even forgot he started doing private sessions with me. He asked for a few one-on-ones, and he was really into the lasso guard, and he started adapting it for his butterfly. He actually has a really good butterfly guard, and I taught him a few stuff, and he started studying jiu-jitsu very deeply. And we just connected, and we kept in touch, and eventually we got seeing everyone each other every day.
I mean, that's usually the best way we get to know each other here in jiu-jitsu is at a certain point we go from like, all right, you're kind of cool to, yeah, I'm going to see you every single day, dude. So I see how this goes. Jefferson, it's so fun to be able to talk to you and to get to know you a little bit better. But I mean, your achievements kind of speak for themselves. You've done so well in so many different facets. But for me, I've seen a lot of the things that you've done over the past few years have been based in no gi. And, obviously we all practice in the gi. Do you have a preference? Do you prefer either gi or no gi, or is it all the same to you?
For me, it's kind of the same because I did a lot more in my entire career. I can say that I trained 70% in the gi and 30% no gi, but I did really, really well in the no gi scenario and the grappling. And but I just think it's just my body type and the type of fighter I am that kind of sync well with the no-gi style. But I really like teach in the gi, but I prefer train no-gi now.
Oh, okay. So, okay, I see what's going on. This is definitely a case where you're telling your students, like, no, 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 guys, I love the gi. I'm just going to go compete in no gi real quick. So, don't pay attention to this. I love the pajamas. I have to be honest with you. I'm very similar in the sense that I prefer no gi, but I'm the first person to tell somebody, like, I am totally down to roll gi if you brought one. And I always tell
Mhm.
people, I'm like, as a host, you always want to make people feel comfortable. So a lot of the times I just tell people like, listen, you don't have to tell me which one you like. I'm just going to train both. But I've just seen you compete and have such success at Nogi that it always made me wonder. I was like, which do you actually prefer? Because you seem to have this natural style that looks like it can adapt to both. But you've had such great success at Nogi. I just wonder if sometimes people go, you know what? I just happen to like this one a little bit better.
Yeah, I during that I at the beginning I didn't even realize how much of a no-gi player I was because since the beginning I used to play a lot of lasso guard. But besides that, nothing else. I used to have grips. Everything in my game is based on body position, right? Positioning yourself in the right place. You're definitely gonna have a lot of advantage or you win the angles on the other person, right? So my game, it's very, very like uh, everything around my game is towards positioning myself in the right position, and I should be able to win any type of fight. So I just think that I adapted, and eventually now, even if you go and you watch my fights on the black belt, like pans, worlds, in the key, my guard, I don't make grips. I only make the lasso grip. Nothing else. I just make frames and keep my feet in position. So it's just I adapt well.
Uh, Clearly, you do, sir. So, not a lot of people can say they've had the kind of success that you've had in certain degrees. So I'm kind of like looking at you, going like, "Oh man, I just can't make the grips that I would with this lasso." And I go, "I think you've made do. Like, I think you're doing all right for yourself." I want to get to some questions here in terms of
Sure.
obviously why you want to open your school, but have you read your BJJ Heroes profile? Like, I'm sure everybody kind of who has one has at least glanced at it a couple times.
I took a look over a few years ago, and recently I went to it, but I don't know if they made any changes or.
I don't either, but this one sentence stuck out to me. Okay, I'm going to read it to you.
Mhm.
It said, prior to doing jiu-jitsu during his childhood, Jefferson played football, soccer. I played soccer 11 years. Connect to you right here and there. At a state level in the goalkeeper's role. Okay, so you're a goalie. Although short for the position. So hold on. I need to get here. Jefferson, how tall are you?
I am 5'9".
Okay, so you're 5'9". I don't know why we're about the same height then. This moment in BJJ Heroes was like, this dude's short. And I was like, where did this come from? So was that something that you felt, or was that something that they ascribed to that
N-
description?
No, so when I was 12, it was the period on the time I was playing soccer. I was very young. I went to the doctor and they pay a treatment, like the team sponsored me and pay a treatment for me to grow. Because I was, for a goalie position, I was short.
Mm,
But
mm.
when I was 12, my bone structures was from a 9 years old. So I was like 3 years behind on my development.
Okay, that
That's
does help.
why.
Okay, now that does make more sense. So even at the time, you were already trying to remedy it because I'm sure you probably wanted to play soccer a lot longer, and you probably had it as a goal that you were probably going to become a professional in that region, or that was the direction you were looking at the time.
Yes, yes, yes. I was like, so that helped me a lot because I became an athlete. I started in soccer when I was around 8, 9, but I was like, I'm gonna be a soccer player. And I'm not good with the ball on my feet, so I better learn how to catch it. So, and then I started, but I was very athletic, like I was very dedicated. And I remember one of my first coaches, they're like, goalies, they're the hardest position. You are the first one to
Mm.
get here, you are the last one to get out. You lock the door of the schools when you go home after you brought back the cones, all of the balls, all of the equipment. You do everything. And I used to be that guy. I used to do everything. Like I was like, I want to be the best on this.
So I want to go back to that because this is an area that I know very well. I like to say to people that if I didn't do soccer for 11 years of my life, I would be obese now. Like the
Mhm.
habits I had, the amount of running I did instilled some good habits in me. But for me, it was always a passion of I loved being with a team. I loved being a member. Like I recognized how to be a good team member in soccer. What was the appeal of soccer to you? Because you just brought up a couple good points that I remember during my years, which I felt like we abused and roasted our goalies to no avail. Like, like what was the draw for soccer for you? Like, what made that so appealing to you as a kid?
I don't know, like I was always very active, but I just everyone well, in Brazil, everyone loves soccer and all of that. But especially the goalie position was for me like I am in control of this, even though we're in a team. Like I always like to play as a team player, but I was in certain position of control because if I would make a mistake, the whole team would pay for that. So it was it was at the beginning people are you're a goalie, you're just a goalie because you suck at soccer, like there's no other place you can play. but I felt that okay, like I am in a very important role here. Like okay, like I can have some power, and that what makes me like okay, like this is cool. Like I like to compete, and this is what I want to do, and that taught me a lot of like the discipline of it. I had to be very disciplined.
I'm glad that you bring that up because we had two very averse reactions to being goalies. I think they plugged me in as goalie, and I remember being like, that's a position I don't want. And I just remember being like, not that I didn't like the stress of it. It just seemed like a position where I couldn't do my best work. Like I understood how hard it was and how much the pressure
Hmm.
was on, but at a certain point in my life, I was like, yo, I'm great at halfback. Like, I'm good at putting me in, run me like a madman for maybe 15-minute increments, switch me in and out. But to me, I was like, I could understand the difficulty of each position. Like, forwards, to me, a front striker, dude, I'm not that fast. You have to be super fast. And then I didn't have the size at the time. I couldn't be more than a buck 40 when I was a kid. For whatever reason, I
Hmm.
couldn't gain weight. And we were going against grown men who had families. And I'm like, dude, I'm 14. This dude looks like he's 40 and has dad strength. And so when you'd collide, you'd go flying. So I was like, dude,
Be
I need to put on
flying, yeah.
muscle. But as a defender, a fullback, I just remembered thinking you need strength and you need to be able to punt the hell out of that ball in a bad situation. And I didn't have those qualities. So when I saw that position of halfback, I was like, I could do this for days. And I felt like I could switch hit in every other position, but goalie was the one that was like, nope, I don't got that. Whatever that skill is, I know I
Yeah,
don't have that. So major props to you, sir. We'll get back into how it means into your journey in a second. But I did want to ask, do you still keep up with soccer? And if so, do you have a
I
special
do.
team that you enjoy?
I do. I love soccer. Like I tell my students that I watch more soccer than jiu-jitsu. Actually, you know what I used? Yeah, I used to do to compete.
Mm,
I know Matt is a jiu-jitsu nerd and he knows everything. He watch all the videos. I would be like, oh, look, I'm gonna fight against this guy. Go tell me the 3 points that I should avoid and tell me, and I go and I do it. Like I wouldn't even watch it. He would just do the
mm,
analysis for me and tell me, look, you gotta avoid this, avoid that, and okay, I do it. But I keep it up. I like to watch the Champions League. Anything, any game after the quarterfinals, I'm on. Real Madrid. My what I cheers for is Barcelona, but
mm.
in Brazil, I'm for by my team. It's from São Paulo, Corinthians. Corinthians is my team there. But I really like soccer. It's. I understand how hard that is.
I think a lot of us have a secret society of, yeah, it's pretty dope. And I will tell you, before I was really into jujitsu, like the kids don't understand now. Back in the day, if you're watching ADCC, you had to be a madman up at all hours of the night. Like now it's all in United States time because we have a big market. But I remembered watching like Finland time and China time and Brazil time and being like, oh, the reason I get this is I'm up at all hours for the World Cup. And I felt like, oh, I know what this is. Because somebody told me, they're like, you're going to watch live? And I go, yeah. And they go, do you know what time it's at? I was like, brother, if you've done any World Cup, this is nothing. Like, at least with World
Yeah,
Cup, you're up for like weeks. With ADCC, it's a weekend, bro. I can cut this in my sleep. It's not even harmful to me. So
yeah.
I remembered being part of a nice secret society for that. Okay, so then I guess now that I know this, one, it's pretty smart of you to outsource this to the nerd of the group to be like, hey, how about you do opposition research and I'm gonna just watch some soccer. So I'm gonna do what I do. I mean, like that's genius marketing on your side. So good work there. But two, when you are watching, let's say a World Cup, does your jujitsu go out the window in terms of when you're a coach? Like, do you just have it on in the background? You're like, hey, everybody, let's drill some arm bars, and you just put it on, or what happens when the World Cup happens for you, sir?
No, no, no. Like I stay on my phone until the last minute before the session starts, and then I have to let it go. But I cannot do two things at the same time. So
Hey,
I
you know
just
what?
focus on the coaching and I
You're a
see
good
the results.
instructor, because there have been
Thank you.
times when I have, as an instructor myself, if there's a really important thing, I have to tell the kids, I'm like, sorry guys, it's on the TV. It's up to you to be more interesting than it is for me. Because if you're not interesting, I'm just gonna watch that. And they're like, okay, coach. And if they get super boring, they're like, coach, are you watching? Yep. You guys didn't do any of the technique right, so I'm just giving up on you today. So we're just gonna move
I
ahead.
understand you. I don't judge you at all.
So they have a good sense of humor about that. But all right, I guess I want to start up top. One of the first big questions I had for you is, why your own gym? So we're very close to you opening up your own gym in New York City. Obviously, you've made the rounds. And if you have any connection to Unity, you have to have a top tier style of teaching. And so now for you to branch out and go do your own work, we're very close to seeing the name of your gym. I'll just see if I get this right. Sintonia Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes.
That's coming up very soon. But the first question for that should be, what is the significance behind the name, sir?
So the name itself, it's it's a translation of sync, right? Harmony. It's like to find a harmony where a place everything flows together. So that's my idea, like a place where you walk in and everyone is in one synchrony. Everyone wants to get better and wants to have a goal with jiu-jitsu, which is achieve something on their life and help use jiu-jitsu as a tool to improve their life.
Okay. See, I like that, because when I start looking at some of these names, sometimes they're almost made up names or acronyms, or they have some sort of meaning to them. So for you, what does synchronization mean? And like, how has it played a role in your life, if that is a word that you have kind of really honed in on?
I guess I learned that in a unity that where it's a place where nobody's there to judge you. Everyone is just there to learn jiu-jitsu and use jiu-jitsu as a tool to improve your life and achieve whatever it's that you want to achieve, right? Most of it at Unity, we have a lot of competitors and they want to improve their jiu-jitsu. So they're gonna find out people that have the same goals that they have, and eventually those people, so at least some of them, gonna be able to get there. But with me, I look even back before Unity when I got to São Paulo at Cicero Costa. I trained there for like a year and a half, and there was where I met one of the people that they changed my life. We become really, really good friends with them. You probably know some of them with Jonas Andrade, Thaleson Soares, Diego Pato, Italo Moura, and a few others. And they we were in the same synchronization of, oh, we want to get better, we want to make a live of jiu-jitsu, and we want to explore the world with it. So we found many ways to do that, and we did a lot of it together. Eventually, when we got to our black belts, everyone had their own like path, took different paths. Like right now, you see some of them at the top is the number one pound for pound, and some of them like Palestine is in Australia, dominating the whole jiu-jitsu scenario there. So I want to dominate the New York City scenario now.
I mean, you know what's funny is that for me, we were talking off air, and I was just genuinely asking because for me, I live in LA, which is another big jiu-jitsu market. And for you, being in New York, a famously competitive market for jiu-jitsu, you know what you're up against, which is it's always going to be a lot of cost for, I'm sure, rent. But at the same point, it's also got probably a wider net for potential students. And one of the things that I know all too well is you can go about 5 minutes in Los Angeles and you'll run into 2 or 3 different academies, to the point where I like to call that our jiu-jitsu mafia sphere. Anytime my wife goes, why don't you just open a gym? And I was like, I don't think you understand the jiu-jitsu mafia. And she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, there's like unspoken rules. Like the mafia has nothing on us. The fact that you can go over and you go, did you just open within 2 feet of my gym? This is
Nice.
my area. All right. You don't know this. And these are legit conversations I have seen happen. I've had people call me to be a facilitator of peace, to be like, you know that gym, Raf. And I go, I know a lot of people. They're like, can you get us a meeting? And I was like, oh God, I got to summon the 5 families together. So for you, I guess the thing is, why New York? Because that's obviously a good base for you, but you seem like somebody who could move to many different jurisdictions or areas and probably find some success. But for you, what is important about serving that community and putting your school in that area?
So New York City is a very interesting market. So we have a lot of gyms. We do one of the biggest, right? We have big names, but there is an area. If I don't know if you know New York City really well, but most of the gyms are on the west side and not on the east side.
Mm.
Why? I don't know. I did a lot of like market research and I did not see a reason for that. And I decided I found a good location. My gym is going to be on the east side. But the most important, I think, is that we don't have a jiu-jitsu product for the type of people that we have in New York City. Why is that? In New York City, it's not safe at all in these days, right? When I got here 7 years ago, used to be a lot more, but now not as much, right? So we have that type of people that they're busy individuals. They don't have more than an hour to expend on the gym. They don't want to train too hard because their levels of stress are super high, so they don't want to increase that. They just want to have a chill time, go train, and feel they can walk on the street safe. So I'm implementing jujitsu with the self defense, meaning it's not gonna be just like self defense. It's gonna be grappling self defense, where it's like an easier approach for someone understand first the fight and then the grappling, the sport aspect of it, and then combine both together. So I see a big gap for this type of clientele where like people just want to have a good time and sometimes they want to learn how to fight a little bit. They don't even want to get too deep into it. And I think it's a great opportunity because we only have either self-defense or either jiu-jitsu sport. Like they got in, they teach you a close guard, and the person that let's say you walk into a jiu-jitsu gym, I want to do jiu-jitsu. They walk in, they teach you the moves, and you okay, I can do this, that, and a third, but I still don't understand what is going on. So I want to do a good translation of what the fight means for people and keep them on track.
See, this is where we differ. And this is how I can tell you're a good person. I'm looking at New York and I'm thinking there's an underserved community of criminals. So I would like open up my gym and be like, yo, robbers, the good guys are getting too good at jiu-jitsu. They're learning too much. I'm going to teach you robbers and criminals how to do jiu-jitsu so that you can at least keep it an even playing field. Because you know what,
Yeah.
guys? When the good guys know how to beat you with an omoplata, you're not a good criminal. I'm just saying. Uh, no, I mean, for me, I look at that area and it's easy to assume that there's an oversaturation of jiu-jitsu everywhere. But if you're talking about an underserved market, it's kind of crazy that there would be a whole geographic region in New York that you go, hey, it's a little underserved in this area. And there are things that you may specialize in that other people do not. So I know you're talking about obviously the idea of coming in and learning self-defense principles and mixing in hobbyists. But one of the things that I find so interesting about your background is you have a very strong athletic background in the sport. And your particular style has been fun to watch in the sport because you're somebody who has this stack pass that's really impressive. But what really impresses me is the ability that you've been able to modify it so that when you're doing it in no gi. And that's part of the reason why I asked versus the gi versus no gi idea, because I was thinking to myself, like, man, maybe he really does like gi better because it is hard to stack pass as easily, in my opinion, without those grips. Like, when you do have those grips, you do have something to work for, but you've made it work so well in the no gi format, and seeing the way that it is worked to your benefit with people who are very good at attacking legs and being able to do that. Somebody who may not know jiu-jitsu may not know that's what they're coming into with you, that they have somebody who has athletic success in our sport. So I guess my question for you is, like, when somebody comes in, are you helping them define their journey? Do you let them tell you what they're looking to do? Because as a coach, one thing I found that's difficult is sometimes people show up at your jiu-jitsu class and they don't even know what they want. They just know they have an interest in it. And when you're asking them, like, what's a goal? Sometimes they don't know what it is. So when you've had students come into your gym or that you've instructed over the years who maybe don't have a focus or a goal yet, how do you find the best success in terms of getting them a direction?
That's a great question. And one thing that I think I am one of the first ones to talk about it, it's integrative 3D movement patterns, which is the three plane of motions, right? I had a good mentor. They're also helping me out with the gym. It's you got to the gym, right? You saw some movements on the internet. You look, that's cool. I want to learn this, right? My job as an instructor is like, look, you don't know what you want yet. Let me make sure you're safe first. Let me make sure you can move. Because if someone not athletic at all, me coming from athletic background, I understand that. When I was younger, I had a whole soccer background where I was swimming, doing physical preparation, plus running, jumping all over the place. When I moved that to jiu-jitsu, it was a smooth transition. I didn't have any difficulties on the physical aspect of it. So I want to first make sure as soon as you walk into the door, you are safe and you're not gonna get hurt. And then after, when you have 3 months, you can be like, okay, I didn't get hurt. I can move. I can, do all the twisting motions. And now I can decide if I want to keep doing this or if I want to try something else. That's my main goal.
Okay, that's pretty good. So you're finding a way to even the playing field, let's say if maybe somebody's not the most athletic, so that they understand the concepts, so that they'll always have a form of being safe so that they don't feel overwhelmed by these super athletes. And that's something that I think is one of the best parts of our sport is the playing field can always be even depending on how you instruct and how you get the people to respond to it. So I very quickly get a sense like, oh, this student is athletic. Now they have to understand concepts heavily for an athlete. Oh, this person's not athletic. They'll have a similar trajectory to what I consider myself, which is maybe they're the technician. Maybe they need to learn these core concepts, but they have to have certain patterns or athleticism things to understand the very beginning so that maybe we're doing more warm-ups with them or more drills that get them to this level quicker, so that it kind of makes them there. But one of my favorite things to do is when I like to pair up people who seem like the athlete and the technician, and when they like go up against each other, sometimes my students are like, oh my God, this dude's like way smaller in this. And I go, no, let them work. Like, let them do what they do. And then all of a sudden they'll see the technicians start to come through, and maybe they don't win the full round, but they start looking good. And I go, okay, great. Let's hone in on what you did right. Let's break down why you were able to sweep them, or why are you able to do this, and let's capitalize on how they were able to use their size and their strength and how you can mitigate that. And once they start to see that there's like little cracks or hope for them, then they start thinking like big picture, like, oh, that concept I need. Off
Mhm.
balancing I need. Oh, grips are more important here. And I go, those are the small little details that help you win. So when you bring this stuff up, it is stuff that I relate to in terms of, yeah, it may be hard at the beginning, but I think that's a good way to goal set with a student, which is you don't know what you want yet. It's okay. You don't have to know exactly what you want. But as long as you know you like this, my job is to guide you with different paths and provide you options. So that is something that I very much enjoy. What has been perhaps the hardest process about putting together a gym? Because to me, I would assume it's real estate in New York, if I'm just guessing. But there's a lot of little things that people don't know when they're putting together a gym. Because everybody likes to think of it like this: oh, I'm just going to open up a gym and I'm just going to teach. It's going to be super easy. It's no problem. I got that covered. But they forget about all the little details that you have to do to open a gym that are difficult. Sometimes securing things, sometimes securing staff, all these little things that build out to a bigger thing. So, what has been one of the more difficult things about actually making the gym happen?
So, first you need to have the money. That is no
For
doubt
sure.
about it. Raising the money can be hard. I I did a good job, thanks to God. I got few people good people helped me out. But I think the hardest, especially in New York City, it is the real estate. I have been negotiating the place. I was negotiating for about 6 months, so you can have an idea. In this, the prices are insane, and especially like I thankfully, I won't have to do like much of construction work because I got a CrossFit studio that already has built-in showers and everything, so that was good. But I definitely the deal with the real estate, it's a hard part where you have to involve your lawyer and everything. And I think finding the staff, the people that are gonna work with you is the hardest. Because they really have to share the same ideas, I would say. Like they have to pass to the student the same passion that you have about it and the same vision, the same idea, I think. So if even though you can have a good staff people, like a good coach, but if they don't share the same values or the same vision, it's going to be very controversial inside of the gyms. So I think the staffing people, it should be very important.
I think part of what you're speaking about here is the relative ease in which you build the culture that makes it so addicting to people to go to. Because
Hmm.
what I find in my journey is I gravitated towards gyms where people were excited to break down technique on a technical level.
Hmm.
I didn't respond to gyms at the very beginning that were just so competitively good that that was their only focus. I was like, that's cool. I'm not that person right now. Like obviously it's a good thing to have. And then sometimes you get a sense of like, I don't know that I'm the same personality as some of these people. Like those are all things that get built by culture. So it seems like the culture you want to build is one of excitement, true passion, and obviously you already have a background in being good at jiu-jitsu, so it's like over time they'll learn to be better, but it's really important to you, it seems, that they feel comfortable and that they feel excited to go do this sport, or at least show up every single time and not lose that passion because it's like, oh, there's only so many moves we teach. So it's armbar month
Yeah.
again. Cool, we're gonna drill 400 times. Go ahead and do that. Like at a certain point, you don't have that certain spark. So it's always being consistent with that.
Yeah, consistency is the key for me, and that's very important. Like I just want to make sure that sometimes even if you don't get a workout and you go like, I know I'm gonna go to jiu-jitsu, I'm gonna do a few push-ups, I'm gonna do a few jumping jacks, I'm gonna do some mobility, and I'm gonna get to practice a technique and improve on that technique because Jiu-Jitsu takes time. Every time someone's walking to the door, I see that person as how can I make that person's life easier throughout the 10 years period that that person probably gonna have in Jiu-Jitsu, right? Because I don't see them as like, oh, you're just a beginner, you walk in. I want like, look, how can I help you get to a black belt? Even though they don't even want that. In their head, they don't want that. But I think in that way.
Nice. Man, that really would have changed the game for me if I knew somebody was looking at me, this goofball, walking in and saying, like, I see you as a black belt. Because I walk in, I'm sure at the time thinking, like, bro, I'm just here today. Like, I'm not thinking black belt. So I think that's a really interesting policy for you to see somebody walking in and seeing their success for them and saying, like, hey, here are things that you might want to know or techniques that you should know that'll help you get to that goal without you even knowing that. That's a
Mhm.
very cool thing, and honestly, it's a big skill to have. I like to tell people my perspective, my approach is I treat jiu-jitsu like a crossword puzzle. Like to me, it's something that I'm figuring out. It definitely is physical, but my brain is always working to be like, "Oh, I think this is how this works." Or this is what this word is. And when I'm really doing it right, it's problem solving. So when people show up to my gym, I start by goal setting by saying like, "Well, what are you here for? What do you want?" "Oh, you want to be the next UFC champion." All right, bud. It starts with jiu-jitsu for me, so I can help you there, but I'll pass you off to
Yeah.
other people who are good at MMA. Or people come in being like, I just want to lose weight. And I'm like, cool. So you need a little bit more volume in terms of how you train, and we'll try and show you some cool techniques to help you understand that this is actually pretty dope. And then you start trying to do those things where you match the personality and the techniques. But for me, it's when people walk in, I'm problem solving with them from minute one. And for you, it seems like you have a variation, which is, mm, I can see this person as a black belt. This is the journey that I can help them see past where maybe their vision can't see yet. Like I'm already seeing past that for them. So uh,
Mhm.
it's a very cool skill to have, sir. So kudos and props to you for that. I guess the question I should ask before we get into origin story here is, and maybe this is slightly out of order. You mentioned that you want to have people who have that spark, that interest in jiu-jitsu that doesn't waver. For you, having competed, having trained for so long, how do you maintain that spark for yourself? Because I'll be honest, when you take on more responsibility as a gym owner, that spark can easily get lost because of all the things that you're doing in the background. Like, obviously, you're a good instructor, but at a certain point, maybe your students don't know all the difficulties of assembling a staff, getting the real estate, trying to fundraise, and yet you still got to keep that spark because that's what makes you unique. How do you keep that in your current day, given all the things that you're doing and all the places you still want to go?
Um, you just you just sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, and I always try to make sure keep myself in track of the things that is important for me also. Like this year, even though I am starting the gym, I am doing all of these things that a lot of things has to be done. I also put to myself that I will compete because I know I'm gonna get better coaching. Obviously my jiu-jitsu has improved a lot, and then the last 2 years I haven't compete at all. Basically I haven't trained, but I felt that I got lazy because I was just like, oh, my focus in the students, and I got lazy to myself. So I have to keep in track with my training routine. So a way for me to do that is compete. Obviously, I don't have the same goal as before to be like top one in the rank. I want to get good battles, but I also just want to have fun and test myself out.
I feel that. And you know what's weird is I like to tell people this. I had something of the reverse happen to me, which is for years I didn't really care to compete, like had no interest in it. I was very happy being this host and doing this world. And things change. Sometimes the weirdest things will hit you. But one of the big things that happened was I had a student who was like, I want to compete. And I go, oh, yeah, you shouldn't do that on your own. I guess I should do that with you. And he was like, that'd be cool, coach. And I go, yeah, sure. Why not? All right, let's do it. And so now it becomes something that's very interesting. Like in my later years of doing this, now I'm like, yeah, all right, I'll do it. And I like for you, it's almost the opposite where you're like, dude, I've been competing for a long time. If I do it, I'm going to be very happy to do it. But I've also got these students, I've got this gym now, and now I'm looking to have fun. I can't tell you how many people who have been doing jiu-jitsu as long as you have are like trying to say like, hey man, I'm just having fun. Like most people who've been doing it as long as you have go, yeah, I'm either addicted to competing and that's not going away, or I don't know that the first word out of their mouth is, I'm looking to have fun. So I applaud your ability to keep your spark even after all these years, because it does get more difficult to try and make it interesting every year that goes by. And that's something that I think is unique for instructors, which is I think they dictate with their excitement for jiu-jitsu how their students have it. So what I notice is when students see their instructor and they're a little like, yeah, I'm just doing jiu-jitsu, whatever. Then they get this like, jiu-jitsu's okay. And I go, what are you talking about? Jiu-jitsu's awesome. But they take on what they see. So if their instructor's a little blasé about it, they get the same way. Which is why every
Yeah.
time you see me in class, whether I'm having a good day or not, I'm like, dude, I love jiu-jitsu. You have to know that about me. So I feel like that part's contagious. But let's get to this. I want to get to your actual origin story, because to me, what's really dope about your story is we talked a little bit about soccer having an influence, but I love when we're talking about you finding soccer early in your life, even though you still found jujitsu at like age 11. So how did jujitsu find its way into your life?
It's very interesting. I had a few friends from, they're still my friends, good friends of mine. They used to do jujitsu. And we used to play soccer in school, but they used to be like, hey, you gotta try jujitsu. And we used to do a little like, I don't even know how you call it in English, like a little fights, like on the grass, we just wrestle, scrap it with each other in school. And they're like, yay, you do really well. You should try. Because I was strong because of all the physical preparation I had from soccer. And they're like, you should do it. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try it. I showed up. I did incredibly well. And they're like, wow, you should do it for longer. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. So I was 11 to 12 years old. No, 10 to 11, and I was doing soccer, but everything was for soccer. But I started implementing jiu-jitsu at night. So what I was there were some days, 2 times a week, that I would do soccer in the no, school in the morning, soccer in the afternoon, swimming, and the right after soccer, and then jiu-jitsu at like around 7 to 8 p.m. So I would be training that much, and everything was for soccer. So I was in a really good shape as for a young kid.
Brother, that sounds like the most insane schedule I think I've ever heard. Like I was an overachiever as a kid. Like I was in extracurriculars, I was in sports. My man's talking about like I did school, I did sport number 1, sport number 2, and then I had a little bit of time for sport number 3. Like get out of here with your 3 a day sessions, man. I mean, it shows that I think for most young people, I actually think it's really cool when they do multi sports because you don't know what you don't know. Like you don't know if you love this or that. So it's good to have a little bit of trying to get all those things. And I argue having the foresight to do swimming as a kid. Like I wish I spent more time swimming. I love swimming, but I didn't do it as a sport. And you find like that helps your cardio so much at such a young age that gives you the gas tank that makes you do soccer, that makes you understand very quickly how to acclimate in a very competitive world of jiu-jitsu. So I think without knowing what you were doing per se, you might have been doing all the right things for you at that age.
Oh yeah, definitely. And all of that because of soccer, right? So that's I took a very early professional approach into soccer. Uh, Thankfully, I had good people, good coaches that they're like, "Oh, you want to be good? That's what you got to do to be good." And I wouldn't complain. I would just do it. If someone that had more knowledge than me would tell me, "Hey, you got to do this," I would do it if it would make sense, obviously.
And where do you get off, sir, being the goalie that can fight? Because most goalies I knew back in the day were not good at fighting. But here you are, when you're scrapping with your friends and you find you have this interest in jiu-jitsu because they're like, hey, you might actually be pretty good at this. So you go, you take your first class. Do you remember your first jiu-jitsu class? And if so, what did it feel like and what was kind of the vibe? Like what was the gym like?
I do remember actually. I remember I had like a tank top, a blue tank top. I had no idea what I was going to do, and I trained with like few friends. I remember the warm up, basically warm up. I learned, the hip escape, roll over the shoulder, and things like that. And we did a little round, and that's where I was like, "Oh, this is insane." I remember someone put me in half guard, squeezed my head. I was like, "Oh." It was nice. I couldn't do anything. I was like, wow, this is really, really interesting. And it's funny because I am such a calm person. Anyone that you ask that knows me well, they know I'm super calm and I am the last guy that gonna start a fight. I even in school, like sometimes like you'd get bully from the biggest guy, they would make fun of you, whatever. But I would just be like, like, what? I'm gonna, bring it up a fight and maybe I hurt my wrist or something like that. And I'm just like, leave me alone. I'm good. But if I have to be in a fight, no, I'm already on it. I know what to do. But yeah.
So, okay, first day happens like that. The next question we ask here on the show is when did you know that you fell in love with jiu-jitsu? Clearly, it has found its way into your life. You're a great competitor. You're an instructor now. You're looking to open a gym. But there's a moment where jiu-jitsu becomes more than just a hobby to people. So when did you actually fall in love with the sport?
So at first, in my first session, I was like, I gotta do this. I need my gi and I need to do it. And it was a week before my birthday. And I asked my mom, Mom, I want to do jiu-jitsu, please. I remember at that time it was like 50 reais in Brazilian money. And I asked her, Mom, I want for my birthday 50 reais to pay my first month in jiu-jitsu. And she's like, you do already too much sports. You don't need that. I was like, no, I want to do it. And then I started and literally like fall in love. I would go every single day after that. And after 2 months, I fought the state tournament and I got like third place. And I was like, oh, I want to do it. But then later on, when I was around 16, 15, 16, I was like, I had good achievements, like especially from where I come from in Brazil, which is the north of Brazil, state called Rondônia. There's very, very little amount of jiu-jitsu. And you don't see any big names from there. And I was like, I won two Brazilian nationals. I won Pan American, and a few big titles in And I was like, wow, I'm good at jiu-jitsu, you know, nobody beats me. Because I was just young. But then when I was in the age of juvenile, I got lazy. And I remember I went to a tournament in that was the Sao Paulo Open, and I got beat up bad. I was in the first or second fight, and I was like, wow, I'm not as good as I thought I was. There's people out there that's killing it. And my professor got to me and he was like, look, you're becoming an adult, even though you're young, but you have to pick in your life what you want to do. You want to go to school, study, and become have a diploma and become, you know, work for someone. And I was like, mm-mm. He was like, I know you don't like school. I was terrible at school. Like
Hmm.
I was good in everything besides school. And I had to make a choice. He was like, look, let's, since we're in São Paulo, let's go take a look at Alliance, Cicero, Barbosa, and we can see a place where you can come, do a camp, and see if you want to pursue the professional athlete career. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's go to Cicero. I look it up. I did everything on my own. I went there, and I just remember I walked in the room. I saw Cicero, Leandro, Iago. I saw a bunch of people like the Meows. I saw so many people, and I did a round, and I got tapped around 6 or 7 times. I was like, "Oh my God, what is this? This is what I'm gonna do." I was, and that time I was terrible, and that's where it started.
I'm curious to know this because you're somebody who has traveled to follow your dream of doing jiu-jitsu. Notably, a couple big different travel times in your life. Obviously, we ask when you fall in love with it, but what do you feel that you've learned from the times that you have traveled for jiu-jitsu? Because I feel like that's an extra step of passion to take this leap to go somewhere where there's not necessarily anything guaranteed. Like you're not guaranteed success when you're moving to Sao Paulo. You're not guaranteed success when you're moving to New York City. These are big leaps that you take that maybe other people do not. What fuels that? Was it legitimately like, man, this is me competing, this is the way of life? Or was it you saying, like, I think jiu-jitsu is going to take me somewhere? And I don't know what it is yet, but it's going to take me somewhere.
So first, I had no idea. I even at that time, I didn't have a big vision. I always took the approach of I grew up in a small city, in a small state, in the countryside of Brazil. So it cannot get worse than that. If anything goes wrong, I come back to the same place I came from. So it's like, why not? You know? Because at the beginning, especially, my professor pushed me a lot to like push soccer, my jujitsu professor, push soccer to the side and pursue the jujitsu. But I was like, no, I'm very passionate. I'm good at soccer. I want to do it. You know, like soccer players, they earn a lot of money or whatever. But he was like, you're really good at this, you know, like, and when I started jiu-jitsu after a year, I did my first airplane travel in my life. I was like, wow, I got into an airplane. I went to Rio de Janeiro. Like, that is, that is way too far from me. Like, my family never got there. So I was like, why not do it? You know, like, he had, he had taken me way far beyond than soccer took me so far. So I start taking that like I'll say open mindset towards it. And I was like, why not? You know, it's taking me to a place where I haven't been before. If the worst case scenario, I'm gonna go back to where I came from and maybe I do the same thing that people are doing there.
I'm curious about this as well because you mentioned how you were going to have this fallback plan, but clearly you haven't had to because you're thriving, you're doing well. You're now into your fifth year of being a black belt. What do you feel has changed for you, if at all, in those 5 years since achieving this notable moment in every jiu-jitsu competitor's life?
What changed the most is Well, I feel that when I got my black belt, I start seeing myself as okay, now I really have achieved a career, right? Because when you're a color belt, you can have a professional career, but you're not on the most important moment, right, of your career. I was like, look, what are my next steps? Excuse me. And I was like, look, okay, I'm gonna fight for how many years? I'm gonna fight for another 7 years. Okay. And what I do next? So I start taking building my, let's say, 10 years approach into what is next to my career. And I realized that I would have to fall into the coaching career.
Copy that. Okay.
Sorry.
No, dude, you do something that's nice, which is you mute the thing. Most people do not have that training. So I'm easy because on this, most people don't know. If I'm about to cough, I can literally do
Yeah.
that and I'm okay. I've trained myself to do that. My man is literally like mid sip being like, oh, I was in the middle. So you are helping being an audio engineer here, and I do
Thank you. Thank
appreciate
you.
that. But I do find it fascinating when I see people reach that black belt status because a few things happen, and I'm just gauging here. So please tell me and correct the record if it is wrong. But it feels like you've had these distinct different chapters in your life where you start as this white belt who loves soccer but is actually pretty skilled at jiu-jitsu. You have a talent for it. You go through this competitor life through your lower belts. As you get your black belt, you still have good competitive success, but you start to see yourself emerge as more of a coach and more as this guide to other people where sure, competing is fun, but you've already kind of seen like when you mentioned getting the black belt in 2019, you're like I have 7 years of competition. Most people don't put like a time or a time frame. They actually try to avoid saying how long they're going to compete. But for you, I think you were saying like to compete at the level you want to compete at, there's a certain window. And yet, at the same point, it seems like now, as you're going to take on this instruction role at your own academy, that guiding coaching role has emerged as the new level of you probably giving back to those people like yourself who probably had talent, didn't know what they wanted to do. And now, when you say you can see people as being a black belt themselves, it's like you achieve one part of your journey, and your new journey is to take people on those journeys for themselves. And I feel like that's a really cool way of giving back to that future generation of jiu-jitsu students. Does that seem about right?
Yeah, yeah. It's the approach I take to it. And like since the beginning, I said like, oh, I saw myself and my first jiu-jitsu coach, I'm very grateful for him. He always told me like, look, you're a great competitor. You can, I have no doubt on what you can achieve, but you have to have in mind that you're not going to compete for the rest of your life. And I always took that approach. Okay, I'm not going to compete for the rest of my life. An injury can take me out of my career. So I understand that I'm going to make the most out of I can throughout my professional career as an athlete. But I also need to have something else. At the beginning, when I was a color belt, I was like, I don't want to have a gym. I don't want to teach people. I was like, no, that's not for me. It was not the approach I took. But once I got my black belt, and Modelo gave me so many um, sessions at Unity, I was like, oh, wow, this is very interesting. I am over here. I'm 20, 22 years old. And, people take my advice into things. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I started realizing how much I can influence in people's life in a positive way, in a positive manner. And that makes me the most like interesting. I was like, okay, I can help people, even though most of them don't want to be a competitor and they can improve their life using jujitsu. Oh, definitely, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. And since then, that's what I have to be like in order to do that, I also understand that, okay, if I want to teach people that, I have to be have to have self-awareness on how to do that. So I start learning, I start reading books and trying to understand myself better so I can teach someone else. And it's been great the from the perspective of I want to help people. I have to improve myself to do that. Oh, I want to do that more because the more I do it, the better I'm gonna get at taking that way.
Good on you, man. You know what's great is it's wild to talk to you in this format because you sound older than you are. Like when you're talking about this sort of perspective, it makes it seem like, oh man, this dude's probably 30s, like he's lived a good life. Like 30s is probably the perspective most people have this
Hmm.
perspective. You're what? 26?
26.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yet you have a good perspective on where you were as an athlete as a kid to where you want to build. Having said that, gym's going to open sooner than later. I don't have an exact date, but what I would like to know is, can you see a year into the future? Right now, what do you foresee a year from now your academy looking like and feeling like this time 2026?
In a year, we're gonna be full of people. I see the mats with a bunch of people, and most important, happy people, people laughing, having a good time, and a future kids program. I want to take the kids jiu-jitsu program here in New York City into another level, which I know some people they do it, but it's a little hard because people don't stay here for too long. But I see a successful place with good people, and I see a lot of joy into the place.
Good for you, sir. All right. As we start to wind this down, I always like to give people an opportunity to do their shout outs, and I'll let you do that. But before I get to like the shout outs where you can, thank people who you want to thank along your journey or, you just want to give a nice little shout out to, I'd like for you to pitch me. All right. So look at me, this guy right here.
Yeah,
This guy is a potential person who could be in New York. You're talking to that camera. I want you to make the pitch on why they should go to your academy. So, why is it that if all the options are out there in New York, you got 400 different academies, 400 different jiu-jitsu places, what is going to make yours the most unique? So, pitch me, the average Q citizen, right now on why I need to go to Sintonia Jiu-Jitsu, sir.
if you are someone that has experience or have no experience into jiu-jitsu, but you're looking to a place to find a good community with positive vibes, you should look it up for Sintonia Jiu-Jitsu. We are an amazing group of people where all we care about is grow together, use Jiu-Jitsu as a tool to grow and make society better. I truly believe that if everyone in Jiu-Jitsu, if everyone in the world do jiu-jitsu, we're gonna have a very safe place where we're not gonna have any crimes or any fights, I would say. People would take a safer approach into life.
Do you mind if I take a quick little stab? I mean, that was good. Do you mind if I take a stab to get people to go to your gym?
Sure.
Okay. All right. All right. So look at this dude. First of all, good looking dude, but it's not just that. He's not just good looks. This dude has got the work
Yeah.
ethic that will make sure that you get to where you need to be. Are you a good athlete? Been there. Check plus. This dude can speak to you on multiple levels as a soccer athlete, as a swimmer, as somebody who's competed at some of the biggest tournaments in jiu-jitsu, and yet he can give you the cheat codes on how to get there just as fast as he did. This dude's talking like in the past. He's 26. It's not like he's old. The rest of us that teach jujitsu, old, super old. Not this guy. This dude also gets a heck of finishes to the point where if you look at his BJJ heroes, my man has a finish by Katagatami. Who has a finish by Katagatami, sir? Where do you have the nerve to get one of those finishes? Yeah, armbar looks check. Got that. North south choke, don't hit that often. He'll hit it. And what I'm saying is, if you want somebody with a variety of different attacks and who will probably, just saying this out loud, teach you to pass guard before doing certain leg locks. Unlike some people, not that you won't learn leg locks with this guy, but a lot of us like to fall back instead of passing guard. It sounds like this dude's going to actually teach you how to pass guard first. I'm just saying that. I'm a culprit too. Sometimes I fall back. But that's just because I can actually hit a leg lock every once in a while. And I'm just saying, we all got to do what we got to do. But if I was learning, I wanted to learn from our good friend Jeferson here. So that's my little pitch. If you guys are in the
Oh,
New
that
York
was
area,
I should we should get a mentorship from you how to pitch. That
I appreciate that.
was
Thank you.
great.
You know what? In the future, we'll tighten it up a little bit more. But I knew from this, I was just like, brother, who did you hit the katagatami on, and when did you hit that on? Do you remember that?
I have no idea. If you ask me
You
who
know
I
what?
did
Hold
that
on.
and when,
Let's find that, because to me, whenever somebody has a really good BJJ profile, Kevin Crane, who actually I know, actually that makes a lot of sense. Oh my goodness, that is a tough dude to beat, and you beat him. Uh, yeah, that was back in 2022 at ADCC Vegas. I think that's probably the trials out that way.
you in this trial, I hit a. If you go to Reddit, there is a nasty armbar that I did from like a almost a full Nelson position. I didn't do the full Nelson. I just used it to throw my leg over and armbar the guy from the back with both arms. There's a guy he posted on Reddit. If you put it up on Reddit, Jefferson Guaresi, it's one of the first things gonna show up.
I mean, you know what's so funny is like I'm now just looking at that insane group of people that you had at that ADCC. Joshua Squires, Sean, who I love, Yana Marco, David Garmo, like murderers row. And then just above that, even at Orlando competition, Wagner, Stan Literosa, like, dude, it's so funny that those things get lost because that was what, 3 years ago? It feels like
Yeah,
an infinity year because we've had like CJI, ADCC happen. A whole new cycle has come through where I'm like, oh, right. And you know what's weird? You mentioned that armbar. We always do fight companions for ADCC stuff. So, like, the ADCC trials, we'll do a watch along the entire weekend. So, when I'm telling you,
hmm
like, we're used to that World Cup life, it's me being like, I'll be on air for 12 hours. Nothing. Yeah, it's
yeah,
fine. And I remembered seeing it, but like to me, because you're ingesting so much jujitsu, it's like it was one really cool highlight in a weekend full of somebody being like, "What was your favorite moments?" It's like I don't remember anything anymore. I just ingested so much jujitsu this weekend. I just know I saw a hella dope stuff. I gotta sit back and process it. So you bringing that up, I do vividly remember that now. You're man. Nonetheless, I would like to put the camera on you, sir, as we circle to the end of the interview. Feel free to give a shout out to anybody you want to give a shout out to, those who I'm sure have been helpful in your process to getting your journey for your gym. So, camera's on you, and feel free to shout out any sponsors you want to as well.
I want to give a big shout out for my first professor, Rafael Godoy, also to Cicero Costa, who gave me opportunity to move to São Paulo, and the legend Murilo Santana, the good mentor, good professor, and a great friend of mine. Shout out for Matt. Also, he had put us in contact and gave me this opportunity. Um, Also to South Electrolytes, if you guys want some electrolytes to stay hydrated and make the most out of your training sessions, go to southtelectrolytes.com, use my code Guaresi10 and you get 10% of discount. And shout out for Sintonia Jiu-Jitsu coming soon. Stay tuned, guys. And I also appreciate all my family, my mom, who without her I wouldn't be here. None of this would be happen. And she was a big support in my life. And I also want to thank my fiance, Nadia. Appreciate for everything you have done for me. Actually, once since we start living together, everything in my life has been thriving. So I can't thank enough. And I appreciate you, Raf, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. But I have to say, this is a well trained man. You can tell he's going to have a very happy life once he gets married because this dude was like, I was nothing without her. She was amazing. She came in my life, went like this. Like, no, 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 dude. You're playing to win here. So smart man. As somebody who's been married for coming up on 10 years, very good stuff.
Yeah, no, like man, like my life. Seriously, the last year it's been thriving, privileging. Like I'm just thankful for God.
When are you guys looking to get married?
We actually gonna get civil married in July,
Smart
and
man.
we're gonna do the celebration on the next year in Mexico.
Good lord, that's actually very smart, man. I always tell people, I'm like, yo, if you want to get married, you want to do the big thing, do it. But the way to do it is like go to the courthouse, save some money, and then do a hella dope reception. And I say this telling people like rent out a space. You're going to Mexico, brother. You're playing 4D chess. Like, yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, it's also my family can go over from Brazil, right? So here it's like all the visa problems. So we get civil married, we enjoy some time together, and then we do a reception and also the church wedding in Mexico, and we have fun.
Yeah, and I mean, part of the reason why I was asking this is I had a good friend of mine at one of the gyms I go to, and he opened his gym and then 4 months later got married. And I was like, brother, what are you doing? He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, this is bad plan. Like, it's gonna be rough. Like, it's one thing to open a gym. It's another to open a gym while you're planning your marriage. And he's like, brother, it's gonna be fine. It'll be great. And I just told him, I was like, anything you need, let me know. And this dude, every time I came in to train, I was like, how's everything going for the wedding? He's like, dude, don't look at me. And I go, why? What's the matter? And he goes, it's so rough, dude. I go, all right. So when you told me, you're like, hey, yeah, I just got engaged, or, my fiance, and blah, blah. I'm like, when are you getting married, kid? And you're like, oh, civil this year, party next year. Yeah, you can do that. You'll be just fine. All right, good. Plenty of time to work on the gym. Well, Jefferson, I want to say also big shout out to your mom, because her having the foresight to say the following sentence but still doing it, like, what am I paying for jiu-jitsu for? You already got like 5 other things you're doing, kid. Like, this
Yeah.
is just extra money I'm paying. But you know what? She did do it, and it turned out right. So I'm sure she gave you the tough love that you needed to go like, hey, listen, if you want to do this, you better justify it. And I think you made good on that investment for her many moons ago. So props to you, kid. You got a great head on your shoulders, a very, very good and great first conversation, sir. I'm going to close this up. I'm going to say bye to you off air. My thanks to you, Jefferson. I wish you all the best and good luck on your academy, man. I can't wait to hear all about it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem. All right. That is Jefferson, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. A couple quick reminders before you go anywhere. Like, comment, and subscribe. If you don't know what you want to comment on, how about this? Jefferson told us the people who mattered most to him. Who was one of the first people that mattered to you in jiu-jitsu? Go ahead and tell us in the comment section. It's always nice to give them a shout out. These instructors often go very ignored, so we love giving extra props and attention to them. So like, comment, subscribe. It really does make a difference wherever you're at. You can also check us out at patreon.com/grappling hour, $5 a month. You could see these interviews 30 days before everybody else. And for a few extra dollars, you do support the show and you get to see some dope extra bonus content. Additionally, rafesparza.com/merch. Get you some Grappling Hour hoodies, some t-shirts, some merch. It really does make a difference for us here at the show. So I thank you guys for that. And we're about to get restocked on some new stuff very, very soon. And last but not least, you can find us Apple Podcasts, Spotify, rate and review. And if you want to continue the discussions that we have here on the show, check us out on the Grappling Hour Discord. Ladies and gents, that's going to do it for us here at the Grappling Hour. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a great day for grappling. We'll see you back on the mats.